I can't believe we're now in a situation where I look forward to Jack Wayland as a relief from Liberty Adams. That's not a good spot to be in.
Yeah, it's always a familiar evil is more tolerable, right?
A known enemy.
He's a little closer to home.
Yeah. Tana, what do you remember from last week? I remember,
I remember him sexualizing children.
So last week, Cara,
fill me in.
Adam, who is Charlie's son, he's a returned missionary who's kind of a bad boy in his mission, but not really. He got a porn addiction because he looked at porn once and then he just couldn't stop.
What year is it taking place?
This was written in 2004.
Okay.
And then because he got a porn addiction, he started sexualizing in his head not only the 17-year-old high schooler
who he's been on a date with, but also her 13-year-old sister. And that was something that Jack felt was important to include, because if you start watching porn, you'll immediately become a pedophile in your mind.
Do you think by reading Jack Wayland, you'll start sexualizing all the 13-year-olds you then see? Because you're like, this is what Jack Wayland sees when he sees a 13-year-old?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think we're using the Jack Wayland sexualization system.
Okay. Don't recommend.
It feels a little bit damning of the author to write about how watching porn immediately led to sexual thoughts about a child.
Again, Jack is revealing so much, so unconsciously. He also, Adam, in attempting to avoid porn, went mountain biking at nighttime, crashed, split his head open.
Really? Yeah.
Stayed in the wild all night, just to avoid... Better he were dead than lose his virtue.
But that does sound pretty hot. That does sound like... If only there was like a woman on Tinder who could be like, you're so horny that you crashed and you got some scars from it. Well, take me now, daddy.
Someone told me recently that they get like aroused at like men being like wounded, and like there's something like hot about that. Like, I'll just take such good care.
Yeah, like
Was
sometimes when my hands are freezing cold and I put them on Jared and he's like, ah! And he's doing his screams, I'm like, there's something I like about that. Okay, this is a comment I really liked from our friend Alex Crandall. He said, something that stood out to me is how overtly Jack admits to totally stunted sexual development in Mormonism / protagonists / himself. There's zero self-awareness at how harmful that is, just shame in their treatment of the inevitable results, which is normal sexual exploration. Like, he's aware enough to know this is common, never stops to think to examine why it's so toxic, and then proceeds to use his very derivative sequel as a device to lecture how to handle this pernicious sin of porn.
Wow.
I just can't help but imagine this entire book is not only a cash grab sequel after the movie's success, but a chance for Patriarch Jack to preach to his own posterity on how they should approach porn and technology through fear and shame. So obtuse, so misdirected, so regressive, so Mormon.
Damn. And that's why Alex and I will have a podcast someday.
Yeah. Someone else said, hi, never mo, but decon / reconstructing Christian here. Just wanted to say, this is Lily Bishop. Just wanted to say thanks back in response to the opening of this video. I love your content and this series. I usually listen while folding laundry or doing dishes. That's like how I dream about people listening to this. Because that's how I listen to
through
YouTube.
the day, yeah.
Thanks for the laughs and also for giving myself and others the courage and tools to engage critically with religion. Love you too. Lily.
And by implication, you three.
If you know who I am, thanks.
Kylie Smith said, this is making me have a lot of epiphanies about my family. I had a mum and stepmom in Mormonism under very different circumstances, but it's wild because my father always had the same reluctance to talk about my birth mother, and there was always weirdness about who was the real mother. For all their focus on family, Mormonism doesn't create a space for blended or different types of families. So all that people know how to do is try to force their families into the mold that's been created for them. Though I agree in this case that Lara has been lovely, it's so sad to me that her and Sam never gave Adam the space to explore his complicated feelings about having a different biological mum. But Sam and Lara also wouldn't have had the tools to communicate their complicated feelings about Charly and her role. Bailey said nothing
I just add to that also when you throw in like the Mormon problem of multiple ceilings and like where he's gonna go in the afterlife, it's like, oh, then they're gonna have like a polygamous relationship in the afterlife presumably, but he can't touch on that either.
Yeah. But he will touch on...
sexualization of children because, again, it's just in the water for Mormonism.
Yeah.
Think of how many times Mormon leaders have told young women, like, you've got to cover up because you're walking pornography for people like me who are just trying to avoid it so much. But every time we see your shoulders, it's like, okay, you're the problem here. Don't you hear yourself confessing that you are the problem?
Bailey said, nothing like the Mormon shame cycle or the Mormon shame cycle born from not feeling shame and thus feeling ashamed that you don't feel shame. Normal healthy stuff. Becca said, this chapter has some of the best writing we've seen from Jack. The bike ride descriptions were solidly 8th grade work, and yet he somehow failed to apply any of that skill toward advancing the plot. That aside, as a parent, I find it absolutely fucking terrifying that someone would turn their child, adult or otherwise, over to clergy for resolution of any issue. Yeah. No attempt to address the issue at all, just talk to the bishop. Is that typical in Mormon families? Yeah, I feel like if you go to the bishop and you're like, I started having sexual thoughts about that 13-year-old girl in our ward... Ooh, I'm like, Bishop's not equipped to handle that.
No.
Yuck.
Your local plumber doesn't have the tool set, I'm sorry.
Last comment I'm going to read is from Jane. She said, they said, something hit me here. Adams, bam, I watched porn once and I'm addicted. Reminded me of Charlie's reading, nay, binging, the Book of Mormon in one sitting. Who the fuck can do that? I fell asleep after 3 pages. And instantly knowing it's real and true. It's like Jack and his ilk have been steeped in some kind of this is how life works Mormon formula, and other ways of thinking about things simply aren't plausible or even comprehensible. And I think that sums up Jack as an author.
Well said.
And with that, we're into chapter 6. So Adam has also decided to get away from computers by moving to New Jersey to be with his long-lost, newly Mormon grandparents.
Is this all...
Now the computer around.
Is the computer motif to ultimately teach us that technology is actually just bad?
I hope so.
A device of Satan. Better to avoid it, stay off the internet, don't read things.
It was midnight when I pulled into the driveway of my grandparents' house in Madison, New Jersey. I was exhausted from having driven from Utah in 3 days. The lights were on inside the house, but I didn't think my grandparents would be up this late. The night before, when we had talked on the phone, they had said they'd leave the door unlocked and the lights on so I could get in no matter how late I arrived. I grabbed a backpack and started for the door, deciding to unpack the rest of my stuff in the morning. I just wanted to get some sleep. Inside the house, I'd only taken a few steps when my grandmother called from the living room. "Adam, is that you?" I looked in. She was sitting in a rocking chair with a quilt draped over her shoulders. It's so scary.
Was she naked underneath? I couldn't wait to find out.
Ew!
Jack can only write in like the most cliche images.
Every character talks like they're in like a cheesy script. Everyone looks exactly how that personality of a person would look. Like there's never any deviation from stereotypes.
Like grandma's covered in quilts.
Yeah. Grandpa, my boy, and he came and hugged me. It's coming, watch.
Are you trying to hug our boy again? You're up? You didn't need to stay up for me, I said. She stood up. We met in the middle of the room and gave each other a big hug. Oh, so she's allowed to hug Adam, but if his granddad tries. I was so excited I couldn't sleep. I'm glad you made it here safely. Yeah, me too. It's great to be here. Let me show you to your room. I followed her up the stairs. We're so glad you're going to be with us for a while, she said. Eddie has so many things he wants to do with you while you're here. Have you ever gone deep sea fishing? No, sounds interesting though. He wants to take you to a Metropolitan Opera concert in Central Park. I told him if you had any idea all the plans he has for you, you'd get right back in your car and drive home to Utah. Going here, doing that, but you know how he is. She has real contempt for him wanting to bond with Adam for some reason. We've seen it before. We went upstairs and stopped at the first bedroom we came to. We'd better tell him you're here. If we don't, he'll be after me all morning to go wake you up. She opened the door.
I guess maybe it is weird since our only modeling for like male to male interaction is like the least attention and acknowledgement at all.
Yeah. She opened the door. Eddie, Adam's here. Do you want to say hello to him? The dark lump in the bed moved slightly. What? Adam's here. He fought the covers to get out of bed.
Boy.
Just a minute, I'm a little slow when I first wake up. She laughed. You're a little slow even after you wake up.
Zing.
This, Cara, is the humorous and tender sequel to the novels Charly and Sam.
Oh!
Yeah.
You acted like I didn't already realize that from that last sentence.
Well, I just wanted you to know that it is self-described as humorous.
I would describe it as humorous. I'm rolling.
I'm literally lying. I have my good days too. He stood up and cleared his throat and came toward me. Adam, you're here. Did you have any trouble on the road? No, everything went well. Of course everything went well. Like, any dialogue is always just... ugh. And then there's never any dialogue about the shit that would be interesting to have dialogue about. I braced myself.
How was the weather during the flight?
Seriously, it was fine. Okay, then maybe don't write about it. I braced myself as he threw his arms around me. I can't tell you how happy we are that you're here. Is it okay if I start work about noon tomorrow? I need to get some sleep. I wouldn't dream of having you start tomorrow. You need to rest up from your trip, he said. I'm okay, I could start tomorrow after lunch. Why are we reading this? We'll see. The most important thing is you're here. How was the traffic? Eddie, the poor boy needs some sleep. You can talk in the morning. He said goodnight, and my grandmother and I continued. So literally no character or plot development from that conversation.
Just like wake up grandpa, shame him for trying to connect.
That's literally what I got out of it. I was like, the grandma is kind of like bitchy.
But she does make a hell of a tiramisu. No, sorry, a cannoli.
Yeah.
He said goodnight, and my grandmother and I continued on our way.
My super fun dream tiramisu. My super fun-loving tiramisu is a
fun-loving real
cannoli.
tiramisu.
Is a cannoli.
I'm not in on the inside
Neil,
jokes.
that's your fault for not watching our Patreon.
Yeah. Good job, sorry.
We stopped at the bathroom and she pointed out the towels I was to use. At the end of the hall, she turned on the light and welcomed me in. This was your mum's room when she was growing up. We got rid of most of her clothes years ago. I kept her scrapbooks here on the shelf and some of her artwork and a few other things in the closet that I just couldn't bear to throw away. And of course her harp. Okay, I would love to have inherited Charlie's clothes from her art student days.
Oh, yeah.
In the book, she's a philosophy student, but then in the movie, she's an art student. And Jack, in the sequels to the first book, has just made her an art student. Like he's just changed canon.
He's gone with the movie.
He's gone with the movie.
All I care about is if anyone can inherit those butterfly clips that she
exactly.
It's a really hot supply right now.
The harp wasn't one of the huge kind, but smaller to fit a young girl.
Is it because he's hoping this will get picked up as a movie?
Probably.
Oh, I see.
Your mother would not be pleased to know that of the few of her things we could have kept, we ended up keeping the harp. She showed me the closet. It was empty except for some blankets on an upper shelf and some boxes and paintings in the corner. Oh, your mum called last night. You forgot a few things. She's going to send you a package in a couple of days, so if you can think of anything else you need, let her know.
It's his porn computer.
No, anything but that.
Okay. How does she feel about you coming out here? I think she's disappointed, but I think she understands I want to know as much as I can about my... I sighed. What do I call her now? My real mum? And what do I call my mum now? My stepmother?
Stop every
Fuck off,
time.
you moron. My grandmother thought about it for a while. Stepmother sounds like it's from Cinderella. Oh yeah, the wicked stepmother, right? She nodded. Both your mums have loved you with all their hearts. I know.
It's because nobody says stepmother.
It's
they
like-
don't say mother. It's just stepmom, and that's fine.
He's like creating like a, just a made up like inner conflict for the main character that no one would really have, because there are other characters in the book being like, they're both your mums, you know, but it's like we keep dwelling on this idea. I just feel like he
It's like, well, it's
He
like
would have come
it's,
to terms with it.
It's something
Yeah.
that makes sense for somebody to have, but it's just like not being addressed or resolved in any meaningful
and
way.
I
It's just like,
can't imagine him grappling this hard with like, oh, I have to suddenly start calling my mum Lara because what, I learned more about my biological mum.
Yeah.
Why would that make you suddenly... Like, what? It's kind of backing up the bullshit at Sam premise of, like, if he learns more about his real mum, he'll just be confused and then he won't... It's like, it's indirectly just backing up the nonsense.
You're right. It's almost like this book is a characterization of, like, the very first stereotype that you have about a grandma is that she's in a cult. The very first stereotype that you have about, like, somebody who has a stepmom is that every aspect of his entire life, that's the only thing he can think about. Porn and who's my real mom. It's like, does he not have any more complex issues he's dealing with as, like, what, a 21-year-old guy now?
Maybe he's struggling with the stepmom thing because he's got so into porn.
yeah, maybe it's a stepmom porn thing.
Oh.
That would make a lot more sense. That would make a lot more sense.
He's calling her Laura now.
It is Laura, but yeah.
Okay, catch up.
What if you called them your first mum and your second mum? I feel like that's an unhinged suggestion for a grandma. Go back to quilting. Okay, I can do that. What does your dad think about you coming out here? She asked. I think he understands. He told me that my first mum, when she was getting worse, he saw her trying to get me to say mama, and I wouldn't do it, and she started crying. My dad said the one thing my first mum feared was that I wouldn't remember that.
This is
Wouldn't
mom
remember
1
her.
and mom 2.
We are not doing a mum 1, mum 2 situation.
Who's on third?
The biggest problem here is that you're, like, emotionally inept that if you even need to question if you're going to call a mom one and mom two. That's just linguistically not smart. Like, that's your big problem here.
But Laura has outperformed Charlie. Does that make her my number 1 second mom?
It's like your MySpace top 8. It's always shifting. It's mum 1, mum 2. But while I'm here, I'll find out everything I can about her. I think I owe her that. See, aren't we having so much more fun than ladies first?
yeah.
Fuck ladies first. Do you think that maybe she knows about you being with us for a while? I nodded my head. I've been thinking about that all the way out here. I hope she knows. She looked at the clock. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk tomorrow. Right now you need to get to bed and get some sleep. Good night, Adam. Good night. I slept until 11 in the morning. When I woke up, the house was quiet. I shaved, took a shower, dressed, and then went downstairs. About time you got up, my grandfather teased as I entered the kitchen. He threw his arm across my shoulders.
My boy.
My sweet boy.
A single tear trickled down his cheek.
There's like a little model train sticking out of his pocket. It's so good to see you. They fussed over breakfast for me. They'd already eaten, but my grandmother cooked waffles and an omelette for me. It was more than I usually ate for breakfast. Why am I so triggered by any comment that Jack makes about food? I cannot explain it. It's like, when he went on his date to the Italian restaurant, he had a salad, a waffle and an omelette. It's more than I usually eat. All things in moderation.
Because obviously Jack has some fucked up food issues.
Jack has some,
shining
Jack
through
is diet culture, we've established.
Is he?
Yeah.
Toxic diet culture.
I thought he's just trying to like meet a word count because I'm like,
That too.
Also-
get that out, get that out,
win-win.
get that out. He's like, you know what I could really expand on? He was looking at the menu. He thought about the lobster. He decided to go with the soup.
This whole book could have been an email.
They were so happy I was there and wanted to make my stay as nice as possible. I couldn't turn them down. The next day, I started working with my grandfather. He owned and managed 3 apartment buildings, or landlords.
God.
My job was to help him do repair work. I liked the work and was glad to be learning skills that would come in handy when I had a home of my own. On Saturday after
Isn't his own father a like do-it-yourself homesteader who hasn't taught him anything? Typical.
Does he have like a career or what's his pursuits in life?
He's a computer programmer. But he's
And
had to quit
avid porn watcher.
because he's an avid porn watcher.
I do not like the stereotype of people on computers are just addicted to porn.
Well,
Professional fapper.
stereotypes
Actually,
are stereotypes for a reason.
and statistically, it's true.
On Saturday, after seeing the harp in my room morning and night, I decided to find out how to play it. I went to a music store and bought a basic book. Okay, this is the banjo all over again. Didn't he was it the banjo?
Yeah, Jack.
With that girl?
Yeah.
He's
But actually,
always
this
trying
is
to
kind
learn
of fun, him
instruments.
picking
Reusing
up.
tropes?
Maybe he'll quit after a week just like his first mom, second place, fun-loving, free-spirited real mom.
Oh yeah, that was Sam and Laura, not, yeah.
Yeah.
But Jack sure loves when characters try to learn an instrument.
He does, but he doesn't, yeah, I don't think he's, maybe if he sticks it out, do you think he'll be like playing in harmony with my angel mother, playing her harp in heaven?
Aww.
Just an idea.
I love when Jack learns how to
Free
self-edit, but we'll see.
I went to a music every night after work I practiced. When my grandparents realised what I was doing, they insisted I put the harp downstairs in the living room so they could listen while I played.
That's woman's work!
My brief problem with inappropriate internet viewing went away now that I was staying with my grandparents.
Spirits in their home.
For one thing, I didn't have access to the internet.
Just killing the vibe always.
My grandfather didn't have a computer with internet access, did have a computer, but that was in his office in the garage, and I didn't go in there. My grandparents only watched home decorating shows or the History Channel.
Everyone in the world has a phone at this point, right?
2004,
Oh, maybe
so
not.
not necessarily.
I didn't have a phone in 2004.
He's still thinking he can run away from his porn addiction in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'd
They
watch...
don't even show porn in New Jersey.
Occasionally I'd watch with them after dinner, but not more than a few minutes. And then I'd run for an hour, come home, take a shower, run for an hour, God, and then read the scriptures until I went to bed. That schedule made it easy for me to avoid any problems. A few days later, just after getting home from work, I was practicing on the harp when I heard the doorbell ring. Oh my God, oh my God.
Your sex drive doesn't go away just because you're not...
My grandmother answered it while I continued playing. A minute later, my grandmother and Brianna Deneau entered the room.
Brianna Deneau!
She is back. So she's the woman who he maybe had a crush on his mission. She was a ball-busting sister missionary. She got him transferred because she thought he had a crush on her, and that got him transferred, and that earned him the reputation of being a bad boy on his mission. Even though all he did was lust after a tiramisu in his heart, when it turned out to be a cannoli.
So the grandparents are playing matchmakers secretly, obviously. She's not just dropping
How
in,
did this walking porn make it into New Jersey? How did she cross the border?
They don't allow it.
He's going to have to confess his porn addiction to her before they get married.
Shit.
Adam, you remember Sister Deneau, don't you? My jaw dropped, and then I gave a lukewarm smile through gritted teeth. Of course. How could I forget Sister Deneau? You can call me
So
Brianna
Sam.
now, she said, smiling.
Oh my
What is
God.
so Sam?
The way that Sam was in the movie, where he's like, I'm seeing things through my teeth, and I'm so annoyed, even though I'm horny. It's like his entire character.
Yeah, totally.
So you can call me Brianna now. Yes, I suppose I could do that. I hated to admit it, but she looked amazingly good. Her brown hair was cut in some kind of young professional look.
Some kind of. I couldn't describe it, but if I had to pick it.
I'm thinking a sort of long bob when I hear.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a dark blue business suit that was probably very much in fashion. She seemed more relaxed than... She's wearing a dark blue business suit to, like, pop by to see, like, is she working today?
Is she trying to dress like his mom for a reason?
Do working women not have, like, down clothes too?
Yeah, when you're hustling an MLM and you're in New Jersey to go to your local MLM conference, you want to let people know that you're a badass, like, absolute slaying bitch at all times. And they're like, why are you wearing a business suit? Do you want to work for yourself and wear business suits everywhere too? I got a pitch for you.
I get the hustle. It's like, why do I have to be the hottest person at these grandparents' house? I don't know, but I just gotta be.
She seemed more relaxed than she'd been as a missionary. Of course, she'd never been relaxed around me on her mission, so maybe that wasn't an accurate assessment. Wait, what? She'd never been... Okay. She wasn't wearing wire-rimmed glasses anymore. Oh, she got hot. She's not wearing glasses anymore.
Oh, wow. She got
That's
Princess
how you know.
Diaries.
Yeah, she got Princess Diaries. Julie Andrews is giving her a makeover.
It was like a...
You are the princess of Adam's story.
She'd finally joined the rest of the civilized world and gotten contacts. Bit of glasses shaming from Jack.
She had even been on a diet and lost 20 pounds. Awooga.
It gave me a better look at her eyes. I still found her combination of blue eyes and brown hair fascinating.
Fascinating. For some reason, I couldn't place a finger on it. I was just so interested.
Not that she could take any credit. I mean, let's face it was all in the genes. Still, though, I found it hard not to stare at her.
He's going head to toe.
You can only take credit when you're skinny from doing 3 aerobics workout classes a week to compensate for your slowing aging metabolism.
Yep.
Adam, play one of your songs for Brianna. Okay, this grandma... I had only been trying to play the harp for a few days, teaching myself some simple melodies out of a beginner's book. The last thing I wanted to do was risk Janot ridiculing me. No, I'm done practicing. Please, just one song, my grandmother asked. Oh, I'd love to hear you play, Janot said. I couldn't tell if she was serious or was mocking me.
I hope she's roasting him.
I was embarrassed to do it, but I played her one song.
No, like, what are you doing here? How did this happen? It's just like,
Stop playing your
come
harp.
in, play the harp.
Play a harp.
Yeah, but still hasn't answered that, right? Like, does she live near this place?
Yeah, she... Oh...
Like, why is she there?
went on her mission there. That was the area on her mission.
Why is she there?
So then she wouldn't be. She wouldn't be from
she would
there.
not be from there.
So she's visiting.
Jack.
I feel like the grandma should have checked in.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Wasn't that lovely, my grandmother asked. Yes, it was. It was just lovely, Janot said in a syrupy voice. Now it was clear. She was mocking me. Let me go get Eddie, my grandmother said. He's in the backyard. I know he'll be thrilled to see you. As soon as my grandmother was gone, I went on the attack. What are you doing here anyway? I was in the neighbourhood, so I thought I'd drop in. What do you mean you're in the neighbourhood? You don't live around here, do you? Actually, I do. After my mission, your grandfather introduced me to a friend of his who has a law firm and was looking to expand. We hit it off well and he offered me a position. It was a perfect situation for me with lots of opportunity. So I work and live in Newark, not far from here.
I don't think she rehearsed that.
Let me read from you my
is that there's a person who there's lots of opportunity and I'm here. Yeah, sounds very rehearsed.
Once again,
He's like, I wish my grandfather would have informed me about this. I would have had a prepared statement myself.
I only had this harp song.
Let me play my feelings through the harp.
Can you literally imagine like playing a song for somebody without asking why they're in your house yet? Just like, how long? Going on for minutes like this?
Who got you transferred on your mission? Can we also talk about the ever-growing narrative of Adam being a soft boy? He's playing the harp now.
Uh-huh.
Once again, Janot had everything going her way. A big-time job and continuing access to my grandparents.
Keeps my hands off my wiener.
She just wants access to my grandparents.
She wants access to Grandma 5.
All that she wants is another grandma.
Another granny.
No, I'll be here for the summer working for my grandfather, I said. Well, we'll probably see each other then. Do you wish I hadn't come by to see your grandparents? I shrugged. It's a free country. I love your grandparents and they love me, so that means I'll keep coming. I suggest you learn to deal with it. Sexual tension is hot, hot, hot. That's what I've learned to do when it comes to you, I said. If you want, in the future I'll call ahead and let you know I'm coming. That way you can go in the backyard and sulk until I leave. But for now, can you play me another of your lovely harp songs? Let's get one thing straight, okay? I'm not a harp player. Gosh, you don't need to tell me that because I've heard you play. But hey, if that's your thing, who am I to object?
Honestly, Jack's best writing so far.
Yeah.
Wait, my question is he just as, like, insufferable with hot women as his dad?
He's the same
Or
person.
he's just, like,
It's
annoying.
the same
There's no difference in their
Like,
characters. Except Sam was too good to get addicted to porn or just lived too early on.
Charlie was too complex, had to be killed.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't
we've
maintain.
realised that Jack just, like, if anytime he starts writing a complex character, they either die or leave the books.
Interesting.
He can't hang.
Or we switch to a new character who's just the same version of the original character. Like, instead of showing the
There's no
continuation
growth.
of Adam and Lara's thing.
Yeah.
Because in Mormonism, the only real major plot line is who are you going to marry? Like, and once you've got married, everything's figured out, and so there's nothing else to write about.
Yeah.
So once Sam figured out that who Mum 2 was gonna be, it was over.
And
Right.
Dano is just Laura too.
Yeah. Who is just someone else too. I swear there was another, like, ball-busting sister missionary. All the sister missionaries we've met in this book are like...
Charlie is pretty ball-busting.
Yeah. But...
Charlie in a more fun-loving, free-spirited way.
Yeah. Like, calling on the overhead announcer speaker
Yeah.
of, like, Sammy, you lost your mom. And he's
Classic
like, oh,
Charlie.
I hate when people are adorable and
I hate
playful.
when roasting me.
Yeah.
For your information, the harp belonged to my mother. She took harp lessons when she was in junior high and then quit. It's been in her room since then. I'm learning to play it because I was hoping it would make me feel more connected to her.
Oh, vulnerability as a weapon. We love it.
Love it. Brianna sighed. Sorry. Don't worry about it. My grandparents came inside. My grandfather waved some tomatoes in our face. We've got tomatoes!
Honestly, that's the kind of energy I love to see
Yeah,
about
yeah,
homegrown
yeah.
tomatoes. They're fucking
So
good.
excited.
I've caught the New York Times, my grandmother teased. They should be here any minute. Such a bitch, this chapter. You have tomatoes from your garden? Isn't it too early for that? Brianna asked. Not if you buy them in March with tomatoes already on the vine and you put them in the window, my grandfather said excitedly. And treat them like royalty, my grandmother said. These are not just tomatoes. Oh no. To Eddie, each one is like a member of the family.
Yeah, Eddie gets it.
This is so funny. Stay for dinner, Brianna, my grandfather said. I'll put tomatoes in the salad. It'll be the highlight of your summer. Brianna already knew what my reaction was going to be to her staying. Well, actually, I should be going. I wouldn't mind if you stayed, I said. You see that? Adam's heart will be broken if you don't stay, my grandfather said. Please stay, my grandmother said. If you don't, Eddie will spend the rest of the summer whining that you didn't get a chance to eat some of his precious tomatoes. Brianna sighed. Well, all right, if it's no problem. Because my grandfather insisted on cooking the entire meal by himself outside on the grill, Dono and I had a lot of time to fumble around trying to carry on conversation. So how have you been? She asked. Good, real good, I said. And you? Everything's fine?
Just a light porn addiction.
Mostly cracked it, I think. Cannot be around a computer again.
Yeah, let alone a woman in a suit.
You told me you had a guy waiting for you. How's that going? Great. He's just finishing up his law degree. He'll be taking the bar exam in September. What's his name? Thomas Marler. Just the details that Jack gives. What do you like about him? Oh, we have a lot in common. We both love music and we have really stimulating political discussions. I couldn't help being sarcastic. That sounds exciting. I thought that might get me a dirty look. Instead, Dono looked kind of sad. So does this guy come and visit you? I asked. Well, he's been very busy. Yeah, of course. He's doing job interviews right now. He's had several excellent offers already. So you don't see each other? Not right now. We do emails, though, every day. Sometimes twice a day. That's good, then. Now he just has to make up his mind where he wants to work, she sighed. In Michigan. Michigan? Yeah, that's right. Probably northern Michigan. That's where he's from. Doesn't it get cold in Michigan? Just in the winter. Well, I'm glad she's having stimulating political discussions with Thomas Marler. Because she's not getting them from Adam.
She's like, I would prefer something actually simpler, like weather conversations.
We're back to Jack writing about the weather! The conversation died again. After a moment of silence, she asked, Are you still mad at me? I'm not sure now if I am or not. When I went home, I was. I blamed you for ruining the last part of my mission. There's something you need to know. When I called President McNamara, I didn't ask for you to be transferred. I just told him what was happening. What was happening? She paused. Nothing, I guess. That's right, nothing was happening. You knew my first name, and one time you called me dear. I was being sarcastic. I guess I panicked. I'm sorry if it made it hard for you. That was not my intent. Wait, so him just calling her dear one time felt like...
Wow, she would hate Liberty Adams.
I called you half pint one time. She nodded. Oh, I nodded. So are you engaged now? Not yet. As I said, he's preparing to take the bar exam. After he gets that out of the way, there'll be plenty of time for us. Well, that will be over soon enough, and then things will work out for you. I hope so, but sometimes I'm not so sure. Why do you say that? Dunno usually made eye contact while talking, but now she looked away. The thing is, he doesn't talk much about us getting married or having children. I thought he'd bring it up at least once in a while. Guys are like that, don't worry. He'll be more relaxed once he's taken the bar exam. He's claiming to know what Thomas feels. She sighed. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'll never understand guys. Anytime. Oh, by the way, you look good, I said. Thanks, you too. I'm happier now than I've been for a long time, I said. On account of I was really sad before because of my porn addiction. I'm glad to hear that. Also, he really doesn't sound that happy. He sounds like he's still on the edge, questioning his own. I laughed. You know, being with you like this, it's hard for me to remember why I disliked you so much. It was because of my phone call you didn't get to see your grandparents' baptisms. I still feel bad about that, Adam. She cleared her throat. Is it okay if I call you by your first name? Yeah, sure.
She's like, now that I don't have to always abdicate my opinion to you and a bunch of other 20-year-old boys, I am a little bit more easygoing.
It's crazy. Brianna, I said, trying it out. Yes, that's right. She stood up. Well, maybe we better go outside and see if we can help, she said. I followed her through the kitchen into the backyard. My grandfather was putting the steaks on the grill. Is there anything we can do to help out? Brianna asked. I've pretty much got things under control here, my grandfather said. If you want, you can make a salad, my grandmother said. If you promise to be gentle when you slice the tomatoes, Eddie thinks of them as his children. We've done that joke, Grandma. She started laughing. We'll do our... She likes her own stuff. Good for her. We'll do our best.
She's working on her material. She's like... She's got a stand-up set coming.
We'll do our best, Brianna said as we headed back inside the house. Use whatever salad fixings you can find in the refrigerator, my grandmother called out after us. You're in charge, I said. Just tell me what to do. She broke into a silly grin. Yeah, she probably needed to hear that for a long time. If you only knew how much I used to hope you'd say that to me. She opened the refrigerator and began setting lettuce, radishes, green peppers, and baby carrots on the counter. We really didn't get along very well, did we? No, not at all, right from the beginning. Will you do the radishes and green peppers, she asked. We worked side by side for a few minutes without saying much. What do you do for after work, I asked. Why do you want to know? Are you asking me out? No, not at all. My motto is never get between two hotshot lawyers who could bring legal action against you. I'm just curious, that's all.
What do you do for work?
After work.
After work.
Yeah, like for fun.
Gotcha.
Well, I send an email to Thomas every night, and then there's always work left over from the day. Let's see, what else do I do? After a long pause, she said, oh, well, one thing, I'm taking singing lessons. Really? What kind of music do you like to sing? Country western, she said with a straight face, and then started laughing. No, just kidding, it's classical. I have a terrific teacher. She's worked with Metropolitan Opera singers, so she's very good. I'm lucky she agreed to take me on.
She would hate Liberty Adams.
For a second, I thought that you liked working class people.
Is he going to end up accompanying her while she sings?
I bet.
Maybe the special musical number at
their
their post-wedding
reception.
sacrament meeting.
Did they do? So are you a good singer? She shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. Maybe. I'm good enough to sing in church anyway. I'm singing in my ward in a couple of weeks. If I can find an accompanist. That is. The music is very difficult. It's from Handel's Messiah. The truth is that, because my second mum had insisted... We're just using that from now on, we've just adopted that. Because my second mum had insisted I take piano lessons when I was growing up, I realised I might be able to play for Brianna. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to. Even though we were getting along well, I still had some resentment towards her. All this time she had been washing the 3 kinds of lettuce we would be having in our salad, and having done that, she brought everything over to me.
No offense, but Handel's Messiah is so overdone.
I'd love to say a comment like that. I thought it strange that in this big kitchen she would choose to work so close to me. I think we were both aware of standing next to each other, although, of course, we didn't say anything. When she leaned over to see how I was doing, she put one hand on my back. You're doing a very good job.
Little one.
Thank you. I believe, based on your performance so far, that I might be able to trust you with the tomatoes. Oh, what a thrill.
He's
My
like,
life is
sorry, I gotta
complete
get to a
now."
library. I gotta find a computer right now.
Don't get your hopes up yet. I haven't come to any kind of final decision. She leaned forward and turned her face toward mine, so we were looking directly at each other.
Hands still on the back.
Yeah, I assume.
Ooh.
These are not just ordinary tomatoes, my boy. I know that. They are special. And they must be handled with great care and respect. I am up to the task.
Is this a euphemism for balls?
Well, all right.
This definitely is.
Just don't drop them. She
Babe.
walks ceremony. Comments, questions.
Jack loves being a passive lover who gets
Yep.
mommied.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes! Oh my god! Yep.
Loves it.
This isn't even Sam, this is Adam.
Yeah.
So it's definitely Jack that likes it. It's like if you've written two characters who are like it.
Both in Charly and Laura and Laura too.
That is actually what's so amazing about the fact that he wrote Adam, because like you could always technically maintain a shred of doubt that it was kind of a made up character. But it's like the fact that he's written two characters with so many characteristics that we assume he himself has is just like full confirmation. Like it's like the law of two witnesses, you know?
Yep.
No one would write this character twice. It's so shit.
Yep.
Unless they were commanded by God to do it.
She walked ceremoniously to the counter where the tomatoes lay, picked up 3, then pivoted and tossed all 3 of them at me at once. I managed to catch 2 but dropped one on the floor. She ran over to where the tomato lay on the floor and got down on her knees to examine it. Jack loves when women characters get on their knees for a
loves
totally innocent
it.
reason. That was how Lara was when Sam
loves
first
when
met
they get on
her.
their knees.
Ooh.
Ew, it's kind of
She
gross considering.
tugged on my
Thank you.
hand.
Ew, I bet she.
What
gave
if
it-
his kids...
Oh my god, guys, this is so overtly sexual.
Hold
I can't
on.
believe it.
Have Jack's kids read this? Because if I had to know what's going on inside my dad's head, I was like, oh god.
We should call this "My Dad Wrote a Mormon Porno."
We ended up on our hands and knees opposite each other, heads nearly touching as we looked at the tomato. It had split open on contact with the floor. How could you have been so careless, she asked. You're blaming this on me? She made a silly expression. Of course I am. From the grill we could hear my grandfather. I forgot the Tabasco sauce. You don't need Tabasco sauce.
It's hot enough.
Some people like Tabasco sauce on their steaks. I'll get some just in case. He's coming, Brianna cried out. I grabbed the tomato from the floor and buried it in the pile of lettuce on the counter. Brianna started giggling. Shush, I demanded sternly, before I also started to laugh.
Did it pass the 5-second rule? What's?
By the time my grandfather opened the door and stepped inside, Brianna and I were busily working on the salad. How are you guys doing in there, he asked. Good, I said quickly. Great, we're ready to eat in just a few minutes.
We
Yes,
gotta fix this.
good, Brianna said, and then started giggling. Do either of you want any Tabasco sauce with your steak, my grandfather asked. Brianna does, I said quickly. She likes things hot. Come on, don't pull your grandparents into this sexual... Ugh. She looked at me like I was crazy. I'll get some then. As he turned his back to us and opened a cupboard to look for the Tabasco sauce, Brianna moved the pile of lettuce to the side, leaving the damaged tomato visible for my grandfather to see if he were to turn around.
This is some classic Wayland hijinks,
I know,
if
this
I've
is
ever
so
seen
Jack.
it.
Literally tomatoes. I'm surprised he hasn't done an actual banana peel scene.
Yeah.
Has he? Have I forgotten one?
I'm pretty sure the guy who fucked up the Ferris wheel slipped on a banana and got knocked unconscious.
Mr. Rafferty! Let's see, it's in here somewhere, he said, rummaging through the bottles on the shelf. I pushed her away and covered up the tomato. She slipped in, grabbed the tomato, and dropped it on the floor. I picked it up and put it in the bowl. My grandfather found the Tabasco sauce and then went back outside. What do you have to say for yourself, I asked. In her best primary teacher voice, she said, Adam, I really think you need to be honest and admit how you carelessly dropped the tomato on the floor. And you take no part of the blame in the tomato incident? None whatsoever. I see. I picked up the damaged tomato, rinsed it off under the tap, and began cutting so it could go in the salad. She, thinking the fun and games were over, went back to her work.
They've
There's
just begun.
more, huh? Whoa.
There is
Where
still
do you build from that?
just so many pages more, you guys. We're on 104 and we end at 112. I cut up the 2/3 of the tomato that hadn't been damaged and falling to the floor. The remaining third I sliced into 2 parts. We need to destroy the evidence. Open your mouth. She shook her head. I don't think so. Oh, please don't do food play. I showed her...
Play.
He's like, but actually, no, don't want you to have
the
those
only
calories.
way, yeah. I showed her the part she had to eat. It's just this much. Open your mouth. She opened her mouth and I stuffed the entire piece in her mouth. Why is it funny to eat a gross floor tomato that has split on contact? She started giggling.
As a sexy bit, like, this is
not
so
liking
weird.
it. This is not a whipped cream from, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be this? She started giggling, grabbed
So
the remaining
acidic.
damaged piece. And after swallowing what was in her mouth, said to me, okay, so basically we're just
Oh,
learning
she's
this
a
bitch
swallower.
can swallow.
Oh,
Point of
jeez.
the scene.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
She's on her knees swallowing.
She's willing
Good.
to do something a little bit gross, to swallow something a little bit gross, as playfulness with a man. Tell me that is not a direct link to Jack's
This is.
blowjob
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Oh, because she's the one who likes to, play rough with the boys. She's kind of like a ball buster, but then when it comes to it, like, she wants to do
Blow
the
her in the
opposite.
streets, primary teacher in the sheets.
Sheets.
Well, I love that she's of age. I think that's cool.
That's an improvement.
We've been making fun of Jack. He doesn't do a lot of character development, but he went from, like, potential pedophile into this.
To now just breaking up a relationship.
Yeah, really
Just
dodged a
like-
bullet. She stuffed my share of the tomato into my mouth, then ceremoniously threw in some baby carrots and a radish. Just pointing out, Jack used the word ceremoniously quite recently. Kind of feel like as a writer, that's one you don't want to be using.
Too much, yeah.
Like, I shouldn't
Ritualistically-
notice that you've used that word a lot in this chapter.
Yeah.
You can close your mouth now.
The baby carrot, is that some kind of euphemism?
The baby carrots
going
and a
in her
radish.
So
I think it's
if it's
clear.
a metaphor for his penis.
Cock and balls, yeah. You can close your mouth now and commence chewing. I put one hand on the top of my head and the other on my jaw and pretended to try to shut my mouth. I can't do that. She started laughing. Don't talk with your mouth full. We were both laughing, and then we turned to look at each other. Against our better judgment, we kept looking long after we'd quit laughing.
Kept looking long after we quit laughing. Let's all do
How
that.
long?
The gaze stays too long.
Whereas I feel like in real life, you'd be quicker to get, you know what I mean? Who has the nervous system regulation to carry on a lingering gaze with a crush?
If they're
Not
your eternal
me.
companion,
Especially
though.
a betrothed. A lawyer, he'll sue your ass.
You look good too, she said. Much better than I remember. I spend a lot of time outdoors helping my grandfather. That must be it. We ate at the patio table with the grill.
Why
a
is
few
your right
feet
hand...
away.
Or sorry. Why is your right arm so much thicker than your left arm?
Grandma, what big forearm you have.
It was just 4 days.
All the better to jerk you with, my dear.
If your steak isn't done enough, just let me know and I'll put it back on the grill, said grandfather. Mine's fine, my grandmother said. I'm sure the others are too. Sit down, Eddie. Is yours done enough, Brianna? My grandfather asked. It's great, just the way I like it. What about you, Adam? Mine's good too. Because I can put it back on the grill if it's not exactly the way you want it,
You
Adam.
don't need any of this!
It's great, really. Eddie, I swear, you're driving us all crazy, my grandmother said. Just sit down and eat. Oh, Brianna, here's the Tabasco sauce, my grandfather said. Yes, help yourself, I teased. We all know how much you like it. You know what? This is such a good steak, it doesn't need anything on it. Some people like steak sauce, my grandfather said, but others don't. I've got A1, I've got Heinz 57, I've also got Worcestershire sauce. Also, if you want, I've got ketchup.
This is classic Jack. Much Ado About Nothing. Is like, I literally don't know how to fill a book, so I'm just
I
going to
know.
go into details. I know that it's dumb and boring and weird, so I'm going to have the grandma speaking for all of
Yeah,
us.
yep,
being
yep,
like, why
yep,
are
yep.
you doing this right now?
It's like, it's still not funny, it's still annoying.
Yeah.
You know what I just imagine is like some like Mormon mom picks this up that'll fill her days, while she's taking care of a house of busy kids, and she's in the middle of reading this book and her kids are asking for something and she's like, I'll get it for you in a minute. So there's A1 sauce, 927, Worcestershire sauce. Hold on, I was about to read if they had ketchup. You damn kids! Ugh, that's what I would do.
Eddie, I swear, this is the last time I'm letting you cook if you don't be quiet about the steaks, my grandmother said. My lips are sealed, you won't hear me say the word steak again this evening. Sister Jano, how does your baked potato go with the dark brown broiled meat sitting next to it? Brianna burst out laughing. I very much liked that side of her. Laughing at bad jokes that men make. At one point during the meal, we exchanged
Jack
glances.
loves that side of her. That's his bread
She
and butter.
still had those amazing blue eyes. Of course she still had them. What do you mean?
No, that's a good line. Like, if you fall in love with somebody on your mission, you're like, I wasn't able to really look at them when I was a missionary, but now I can really look at those blue eyes that I was.
As someone with amazing blue eyes, they really do get to people. They
Yeah.
are a treat for people to
Yeah.
look at.
Yeah.
After a few seconds, we caught ourselves and turned away. When we were nearly done eating, my grandmother said, guess what we're having for dessert? Cannoli, Brianna asked. That's right, all you can eat. See, I'm like, man up. Say tiramisu. It's tiramisu for dessert.
Yeah.
Give us a real, plot line. Wow, I'm so glad I dropped by. We're glad you did too, aren't we, Adam? My grandmother asked. Yeah, actually, I am. After we finished eating, Brianna and I helped clean up. I told her I was staying in the same room my mum had been when she was growing up. I've been going through some of her things. You want to see what I found? I'd love to.
I occasionally see her ghost.
Here's her diaphragm.
She says, my boy, my boy.
What is a diaphragm again? I always forget what a diaphragm is. Is it like a female condom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I went up to my room with a couple of empty boxes from the garage and grabbed everything that belonged to my mum and then hauled it all downstairs to the kitchen. Brianna and I sat at the kitchen table and started going through it. I'd also brought some paintings my mum had done when she was my age. She was beautiful, wasn't she? Brianna said, looking at a photo. Yeah, she was. What's it like for you to be staying in her room? Brianna asked. It's hard to explain. Sometimes it's almost like she's here. And what's that like? Very peaceful.
Helps me not masturbate, TBH.
Yeah. Anyone else have a ghost joke? And what's that like?
He's like, there's also occasionally visited by a succubus.
What's a succubus?
It's a ghost that comes and has sex with you.
Not a poltergeist?
No, that one's just kind of a general pest nuisance. They slam doors
Obviously.
and jangle things. Actually, and I think part of the official lore is that a succubus is like a gay man spirit.
He sucks your business.
Sucking your bus. Comes to suck your butt, pretends to be a woman, and it's like anti-trans rhetoric, even on the astral realm.
Cool. You should know a lot about ghosts.
I do.
Very cool.
Wow.
Different than an incubus.
What's an incubus?
It's just swap gender.
It's a band that makes my husband cry to himself. Cut that out.
They do have some bangers.
She must be proud of the way you've turned out. I hope so. Brianna pulled a Monopoly game from one of the boxes. I haven't played... Oh, we're literally going to play Monopoly.
We should play... the most
boring
boring
game being British. The only thing worse than the most boring game is reading Jack write about the most boring game.
No!
You want to play? Sure, let's see if we can talk your grandparents into playing too. We played on the kitchen table, because, you're not supposed to play Monopoly alone.
Yep.
The four of us started out eager and hopeful, but by 10:30 my grandfather was bankrupt and my grandmother was dozing. They exhausted themselves.
10:30?
So they're going to be playing Monopoly together after the other two have conked out.
Sick.
Capitalist
Who's the banker?
pigs at the top of the spectrum.
Yeah, he's gonna have a monopoly on her pussy at the end of this book.
By midnight I was broke, trying to make it around one time so I could collect $200. Unfortunately, I landed on one of Brianna's holdings, Boardwalk. I'll need a loan, I said. No, what you need is a miracle. Let's call a truce, okay? All you have to do is ask me to pay what I owe and you win. I don't want to win this game. What do you want? I asked. I'm hoping to get a friend out of this. Yeah, and it's true. Adam does seem like someone who's too fragile to let a woman beat him at Monopoly.
True. Mm-hmm. He's gonna flip the board, we know it.
Oh, and clobbering me at Monopoly is the way to do that? Something like that. Can we quit now and maybe talk? Sure. We carefully put everything in the box, treating the pieces and cards with more respect than we normally would because they had belonged to my mum. Is it okay if I can explain why I was such a control freak on my mission, she asked. You were fine, really. Still, I'd like you to know. All right. Sorry, but he acts like so moralistic about her being like the way that she was on her mission, but then when she's like, can I talk to you about it? He's like, you were fine. I'm like, if you really had the strong moral compass that to where you genuinely thought this behavior was like problem, do you know what I'm saying?
Also, and she was not a control freak on her mission.
No.
She was just asking to be treated with basic human dignity.
Wah! She did like prepare notes for that presentation, which was a bit much, but it's like, what else she got on, Might as well.
Because she just needed to say her bit, and no one let her say her bit.
Let everyone say their bits. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. When I was a freshman in high school...
We should have me start making a joke and then the frame cuts off.
Yeah.
Here's my bit.
I grew up in Denver...
Just cut it and then...
I grew up in Denver, Colorado. When I was a freshman in high school, my dad left my mum and me for another woman. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
That's why she's a control freak?
She shook her head. He took everything. He cleared out the checking and savings accounts, took out only car and all the money we'd set aside for rent.
Oh, trauma.
She lowered her gaze. My mum was devastated. She had no skills, no education. She got one job working in fast food and a second job in a grocery store. We had to move to a cheaper apartment. We had nothing. It didn't seem fair that he could do that. My mum tried to collect child support, but the legal system seemed powerless to help us because we had no money to pay for a lawyer. Is that when you decided to become a lawyer? She nodded her head. I wanted to be an advocate for those who had no voice. It's what I still want. But first I need to pay off my student loans, and then I'll start my own practice and go after the bad guys.
How soon until he talks her out of that? He's like, actually, what you should do is be a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, yeah.
Guarantee it's coming.
But the next...
This is just an art student now. Somebody actually trying to make a difference in this fucked up world.
Right.
For the next few minutes, she told me
Art makes a difference. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm with you.
Well, technically with Lara, it was a blouse store. It was the blouse barn. For the next few minutes, she told me how she had dedicated her life to getting good grades so she'd be eligible for scholarships and how hard she'd worked to get through school as fast as she could. As a lawyer, do you get a say? I guess you can choose who you represent, but she's like, I'm going to go after the bad guys.
Yeah.
Can you choose that?
Yeah.
Okay. She continued, I had scholarships all the way through college, she sighed, and then, what? Looking back, I can see how I should have gone to law school in Colorado, but I did so well on my exam to get me into law school that I talked myself into going to the very best school that would accept me, and that was Columbia University. The scholarship pool, at least for me, dried up, so I had to take out school loans. You're doing okay though, right? Yeah, sure. I've got a good job here, so I'll just keep working until my loan is paid off. That might take 2 or 3 years, but it will get paid off and then I'll be free to do what I want to do. I still don't understand why you went on a mission after you finished law school. She let out a big sigh. 2 weeks after I passed the bar exam, my mum was in a car accident. She never regained consciousness. She died 2 days later. Her eyes were glistening with tears. I'm sorry. She nodded. Thanks. I'm okay now, but at the time I fell apart. I'd put all this effort into trying to make it right for my mum, and all the mums like her in the world, and just when I was in a position to begin doing it, she died. There was a set of crystal salt and pepper shakers on the table. She picked the salt shaker up and, grabbing a napkin from a wooden holder, slowly and methodically cleaned the finger marks from the glass. How did you get through all that? I asked. Not very well. My dad and his second wife came to the funeral. I yelled at him at the cemetery and insulted his wife. I blamed him for everything that had ever happened to me and my mum. She sighed. And then I went back to our apartment and started to sort things out. What to keep, what to throw out, what to give to charity. 2 days later, the room was empty. And so was I. Powerful writing.
Brianna, whatever your name is. Sorry, sweetheart.
She continued to fuss over the salt shaker. My bishop and his wife came by a few days later. He asked me to consider serving a mission. He told me ward members would pay for it. It's a bit of an undue influence for the bishop to say, hey, your mum just died, you seem like you're not doing well. Instead of pursuing a career and paying off your student loans, you should go on a mission.
Yeah.
Bit weird.
You don't have to feel anything when you're suffering for the Lord.
I told him no at first, but then after 2 months I decided it might be the best thing for me. You never told anybody about this on your mission, did you? She shook her head. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I rested my hand on hers. Thanks for telling me that. She nodded.
Why did he just assume that? And then she...
Yeah.
Surely it would have come up at some point. No one's just like, oh, you know what, when you feel bad at me, so I never say anything, even though I'll say it to this guy.
Like one companion, yeah. She nodded. I wanted you to understand why I came across as a little stranger on my mission. How did Thomas come into your life? She sighed. I'd almost hate to tell you. Why? You didn't meet him in a bar, did you? She smiled. No, nothing that exotic. It was while I was at Columbia Law School. I had zero social life, but one night, in a weak moment, I guess, I visited a website for LDS singles. In our biographical information, we both listed we wanted to be lawyers, so that's how we started emailing each other. He was a senior at Michigan State. I guess if my mum hadn't died, we'd be married by now. She sighed. Life doesn't always turn out the way you'd like.
Is it because Jack doesn't know of any university outside of Utah that she's Columbia again?
Well, I think it's just supposed to be like, whoa.
He's got mommy issues, and he's like, you're saying I could bang somebody else who went there? No, what I do think is funny is he's really relating to the audience, because everyone's like, we've been there in a moment of weakness, logging onto an LDS Singles website just to see what fish are in the sea.
She looked at her watch. I'd better go. I walked her out to her car. Thanks for a fun night, she said. It was the tomatoes that did it for us, wasn't it? Yes, magical tomatoes, she said with a slight smile. Can you believe we're the same two people who fought so much on our missions? That made me laugh. No, you're entirely different than I thought. You think we could be friends? She asked. I'd like that very much, but there's something you should know about me. What? I play the piano. No, you don't. I do. My second mum made me take lessons.
Piano was a metaphor for my penis.
You think you could accompany me at church on Sunday? I could try. You want to get together tomorrow after work and practice? In fact, come for dinner.
Also, just my second mom made me develop my skills.
I know. You will check with your grandparents about me coming, won't you? I will, but they're crazy about you. I'm sure they'd love to have you. All right, tomorrow it is. I opened the car door for her. Good night, Brianna.
Did he say tis?
No, I just said it weird.
Okay.
tomorrow it is.
You always know that
Tomorrow
people
it is.
are feeling things when they start speaking in old-timey.
It's so true and it's so cringe. Oh, that's like such an instant ick for me, imagining someone that would be like, "Doth the lady?"
I know. I've done it
visceral-
myself. I've done it myself.
You've
and,
done it?
you know, just...
It's a curse being such a brilliant improv actor. Okay. I watched her drive off, then went inside and hauled the harp upstairs. No more embarrassing, unscheduled concerts for me. Next, I carried the 2 boxes of my mum's things to my room. In putting everything away, I was impressed with the paintings she had done. Maybe I could do this too, I thought. I grabbed a sketch pad and tried to draw a headshot of Brianna. It turned out awful, but it had enough promise that I felt if I practiced, I might be able to make a portrait of her good enough to give to her as a present.
Ooh.
I really love the shading on your upper lip. It took me like 2 hours.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, the self-confidence of this man. I'll
I
play the harp
know.
for her. Just thinking.
A few minutes later, after saying my prayer, like, you didn't
should go-
have to play the harp. You really could have just said no.
Don't quit your daily computer job.
Yeah, I know. He had this, like, $100,000 a year job. No, like, that's such a... You could easily earn $100K in 2004 doing that.
This is great. He's focusing on his art, and artists are notoriously not sex havers.
Oh, I started to think about my first mum. It was a weird impulse, but I wanted to talk to her, so I pulled a quilt from the foot of my bed and I went to her closet and
You
sat
cannot
down.
pray to Heavenly Mother. You can't.
No, fucked up. It would have been too strange to talk to her out loud, so it was more like thinking than talking. But in my head, I told her I wished she hadn't got sick and died. I told her I wished I could meet someone who was like her, someone who knew how to enjoy life and have fun. Oh, he's literally looking for his mother in his wife.
Yeah, so that he too may suck the life out of her, literally.
This made-up version of his mother that he has in his head.
Yeah. That
Someone...
he's judging everybody else by.
Yeah. Someone who would make me laugh, someone who would make me happy, someone like Brianna who I could talk with about anything. It's gonna go great for you. I told her I felt sorry for Brianna, who had been first abandoned by her dad and then had lost her mum to an accident.
So vulnerable.
I told my mum I was beginning to think I was more like her than I was like either my dad or Lara. I told her I wished there was some way I could know if she'd heard me and if she understood. I waited for an answer, but nothing happened, so I went back to bed.
Start the trauma bond.
In the middle of the night, I awoke to the sound of a harp being played. It was so real that I sat up in bed.
Necromancy much? Conjuring of spirits much?
Yes.
Sam performing witchcraft? Trying to speak with the dead?
Adam.
Sam 2? my second Sam?
His sleep paralysis demon has like loved the harp just to freak him out.
It's the succubus! Here to succubus!
And that's the Irish bard. The room was dark, but for an instant it looked as though a woman dressed in a flowing white gown was seated at the harp, gently strumming it.
What?
I can't tell if this is the start of a porno in his head or a mum thing, or both.
Both. Always both.
Always
yes,
both.
and.
From experience. I mean, yeah.
It seemed like the answer to my wish that my first mum had come and was playing her harp for me. Charly didn't have harpist energy. Like, she was kind of cooler. Why is she like this weird angel now?
Also, we heard that she only played for like a week, so she
Yeah.
probably sucks.
Yeah.
It's probably bad harp.
She came and played chopsticks for me.
And now she's suddenly really resonating with the instrument after she's dead.
Da, da, da,
She's an angel after all.
Da, 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 da,
I think
da.
when
That would be beautiful though. You have to admit, a harp going hot cross buns.
Harp cross buns.
So beautiful.
Cross buns.
Literally, after you finish filming this, I'm gonna do first thing I'm gonna do is look up on YouTube like basic harping. I have to hear what they are playing.
It seemed like the answer to my wish that my first mum had come and was playing her harp for me. I wanted it to be her because I wanted to know that she still cared about me. Of course she still cares about you. Of course she still cares about you.
I mean, of course, she's dead.
She's also dead. Yeah. You think if heaven is real and your mum's up there that she would just not care about you anymore? And I wanted her to know that I was learning about her and that her hope that she would be important in my life was coming true. I'm not sure how long I lay in my bed trying to extend the fantasy, but eventually I noticed the wind was blowing, and every time there was an especially strong gust, the blinds and curtains would billow into the room, touching the strings of the harp and making a small sound. Oh, very skeptic of Jack.
Also, very cliche, sexy scene starting.
Total eclipse of the harp. Jack loves that
Of the
music
harp?
video.
puns.
You're the only one I let get away with now. Thanks, because you're just
like-
so good at callbacks.
Okay. That was hilarious.
I got up and shut the window. Oh, it's just the wind, I thought. That's all it is. I got up and shut the window and went back to bed and soon fell asleep for the rest of the night. Boom.
And then I
Thank God.
Didn't watch porn the whole chapter. Just a one chapter porn issue. It's self-contained.
It probably is the last time we'll hear about that. It's
Yeah,
probably fixed.
that's what I said. But I think he's gonna have to like tell Sister Deneau at some point before they get wed.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that? Did we all linger a bit longer than we should?
We had to linger longer. Where's our cardboard cutout?
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Cara, for sitting through a chapter with little context.
I thought it was really
Yeah,
fun.
killed it. Come back anytime.
Hilarious commentary from the both of you. I just was here to enjoy it.
Banksy, thank you for being here.
Banksy, thank you. Loving vibes.
He looks so cute with his paws crossed.
Bye.
Bye.